Right, my name is Natalia Vicharek and I'm interviewing Ray Adams, Terry Wiltshire and Peter Waddington at the Royal Hospital Chelsea Museum on the 25th of February 2016. Right, so let's start with Ray.
Yes.
Ray in the middle, Ray's in the middle. Ray, can you give me your name and your rank on leave in the army and the regiment you served in?
The regiments I served in, or I was serving in at the time?
At the time.
I was WO2 RQMS with the Territorial Army, with the 4th Battalion of the Parachute Regiment, which I was an NRPS soldier, which is a non-regular permanent staff.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be in the olden days long service list,
Okay, thank
but
you.
it was
Thank you.
changed to an RPS.
Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I am 72, 73 this year.
Thank
A
you.
young lad at the side of these.
72. And how long have you been at the Royal Hospital?
11 months. 10 months.
Yeah? You
10
enjoying
months.
it?
Yes, yes, very much so, yes.
Brilliant. Peter, the same for you. Your rank on leaving the army?
I was a staff sergeant,
Staff
Royal Artillery, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 84. I'll be 85 next month.
And how long have you been here?
Just a year, February last year.
Yeah. So you've settled in all right?
Oh, fine. No problems with this at all.
Brilliant. What about you, Terry?
I was a WO2 RQMS. I was 4th Regiment Royal Artillery. I'm 79 and I've been here 19 months.
And you finding it enjoyable?
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah. Got nice friends and
I beg your pardon?
you've got nice friends.
Oh yes,
Yes.
yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we'll go back to you, Peter. Where were you born?
I was born in Chesterfield, Derbyshire.
Oh.
Yeah. Or near to Chesterfield, Derbyshire.
Yeah, I'm from Derbyshire.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Not me. But
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
yes, quite a large family, but I still have a sister who's 100 this year, and she's the only remaining, although I had lots of brothers, only one sister, and she's the only survivor, and myself.
Gosh. Ray, where were you born?
Born in Sheffield,
Yeah.
in 43. 2 brothers. One was in the army with me, who has since died, and one lives in Leeds.
Okay.
He was in the army for about 6 months and decided he didn't like it, and that was it. He was out. And he wants to know if he can come down to Chelsea.
What about you, Terry? Where
I
were
was
you
born in Brighton.
Oh, so you're the only southerner.
So,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have brothers and sisters?
I've got a sister in America and a brother who lives in Nottingham. Both my parents are dead, obviously.
Yes. Oh gosh. Okay, so Peter, what did you do before you signed up? What was?
Well, I left school at 14, which was the normal age then, and I became an apprentice bricklayer, which I carried on to until I got called up on my round about 18 years of age, called up to do national service, which was then 1.5 years, 18 months. But that got extended to 2 years because of the Korean War starting. And during that final few months, I decided to become a regular soldier and signed up.
Do you enjoy being a bricklayer? It's a good.
Oh, well, it was it was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. It was good at that time, a good skill to learn, because it was at that time again there was plenty of employment in that area. Mm-hmm.
Ray, what did you do before?
I
you
was 15 years of age, and I went to the Sheffield Central Technical College. And I didn't like them. They didn't like me. We had a disagreement. The headmaster got the better. I left, joined the army.
So straight away.
And that was it, yeah. And I was in the army within 3 weeks of leaving school.
It obviously suited you. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Terry? What did you
Much the same as Ray. I was at school in grammar school in the 5th form, but I'd always wanted to be a soldier. And my parents had to go for an interview to the education offices down in the town to get permission for me to leave school. Their argument was it was a grammar school and my leaving had taken someone else's place. But I left anyway, and 3 months, was it 3 Christmas, and 2 months later I joined the army
Gosh.
at 16.
So you were 16, you were, how old were you again?
15,
15,
3 months.
And I was 18. And
18, so you
4
were
months.
the oldest. Oh. And can you remember where you enlisted?
Yes, Chesterfield in Derbyshire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you remember that day?
Yes, it was a Thursday,
Yeah.
because that was a standard thing for national people being called up for national service. Things always happened on a Thursday, well, for some reason.
Yeah, yeah. Can you remember enlisting?
Yeah, mine was, I say, about 10 days after I left school.
Yeah.
It was the 30th of October, it was a Thursday, and I had a medical, took my Queen's shilling, and the oath of allegiance, and 4 days later I was on the train down to Hereford.
Gosh. Can you remember, Terry?
I can't remember the day, it was February the 4th, I do know that. And again, you go there at the Oddfellows Hall in Brighton, and I signed on, I got the Queen's shilling, and they gave me a railway warrant to Hereford. And it's the first time I'd ever travelled on a train on my own. And I had to come through London, which I had never been to London before. And I had to get across London from Victoria to Paddington. But it was the Circle Line, it was simple. But it was an adventure. It was an adventure.
Well, such a young man,
Yeah.
you know. Gosh. Peter, can you remember what your thoughts were on enlisting? There you are, you're...
I was quite pleased to get my call-up papers. My thoughts of becoming a bricklayer, winter, cold hands, that sort of thing. So I was rather pleased to get my call-up papers. And those days you had to go to the local labour exchange and sort of sign on. And then you got called back 3 months later for a further interview, and then a letter telling you where and when to report, which then, those days, was Oswestry for national servicemen. I don't know whether the regular soldiers joined or went there, I can't remember. There were only, as far as I knew, national servicemen there at the time I was there. But that was only for a few days. 10 days later I was posted to a gunner regiment in Gravesend in Kent.
So you felt quite upbeat about it?
Well, yes, I was just one of many thousands those days, of course, going through the mill. Yeah, it was quite good.
Can you remember, Ray, your thoughts?
Yeah, I got the 1043 to Hereford
Oh,
via Birmingham. I had to change at Birmingham from Sheffield Midland. And there's a guy there, a guy called Keith Pearson, who also was joining boy service with me. Both of us looking forward to it. Till I got to Hereford and this guy shouting, I thought, no, I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I've got to leave. You know. And Keith Pearson strode out, and I sat there like that. And this guy said, are you joining the army? And I said, no. He said, get out. And I was out.
Yeah.
And that was it. You know. Yeah. Taking it to Hereford. You know.
What were your thoughts, Terry?
I beg your pardon?
What were your thoughts that day of enlisting?
I was excited because I've been waiting so long to join up. And a bit of an anticlimax when I got to Hereford, because it was about 7 o'clock in the evening. And the guard commander said, you can't see anyone now. So I slept in a cell. My first night in the army, I slept in the guard room.
Oh, that's funny, actually. So, what was the process of enlisting? Did you have, you have your medical, or what happened? Could you tell me, Peter?
well, as I say, I'd reported because it told me to, some 2 or 3 months later, went and had a medical, and about 3 months later I got my papers to report to Oswestry in my case. And again, those days, national servicemen, you always used to get called upon a Thursday. Every 2 weeks, 2,000 young men were drafted into the army or called up into the army. That, for national servicemen, that was. Regulars, I can't tell you, the individual system.
So it was different for the regular?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, with boys service, it depends on what time of the year you join, because at Nuneaton there were 6 intakes. You know, there was 2 in to do recruits and then into troops. I, with joining or signing up on the 30th of October, my recruiting day was the 4th of November. So I was in, signed up, on my way there, travel warrant, and down there, and that was it. And it was 6 weeks before Christmas, and I did my recruits,
Yeah. And so young?
and that was it.
Yeah. What about you, Terry?
I arrived on my own. There was no one with me, and in the morning I was interviewed by someone, I can't think, the adjutant I think, and I was posted to Ironside Troop and straight in at the deep end. Didn't do any basic training, I just had to, luckily I'd been in the Army Cadets, and as soon as I had all my kit, uniforms and stuff, I paraded with the troop and did everything they did.
That's interesting, so I was going to ask about how you chose your regiment, but it sounds like you didn't have really a choice. Did you have a choice?
No, when I got my call-up papers, I think at the second time I reported to the employment place, I had the choice of, I opted for the Royal Engineers or the Royal Artillery. And when my papers came, it said Royal Artillery, I had no choice from that.
And that's the same for you, isn't it?
Well, no, when I went there, I was thinking of joining the Royal Engineers, and I took a test paper on the day I joined, and they told me the next day, no. I don't like to say it in front of sappers, they reckon I was too intelligent for the engineers. And they put me in the gunners, you know, which I was quite pleased about in the end, you know.
I chose the gunners.
Yeah.
I wanted the infantry because I've been in the Army Cadets. I wanted to join the infantry, and they looked on a file and said, you know, junior leaders infantry is full up, and I said, all right. I fancied tanks. I said, I'll join the cavalry then. They're full up. I said, what's left? And they said, Royal Signals, Royal Engineers, or the Royal Artillery. And I had an uncle in the Royal Artillery. I said, well, I'll join the Royal Artillery.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting how it happened?
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. One thing that fascinates me is the training that you must have had. Peter, can you tell me about what you first thought about the training?
Yes, I mean, it was all very basic stuff, and I did, I think, 10 weeks at Oswestry, which then, as I say, was for national servicemen being called up. And then, and 10 days later, I was posted to a regiment, 75th Heavy Anti-Aircraft Regiment, which at that time was stationed at Gravesend in Kent. So we had no choice at all. You just, nominated. So there wasn't much choice or volunteering at all. But I was quite pleased with the system and what was happening.
So what's the training involved?
Well, for the first number of weeks, it was basic stuff, square bashing, that type of thing. Lectures on how to put your kit together, as we all, I suppose, went through. But very quickly, as soon as I got down to the regiment, the first 3 or 4 weeks you were working on the guns. It happened, depending on what sort of regiment you were with. And then I was chosen to become what they called a predictor operator. It sounds like a spice, doesn't it? Working in a control room for a regiment, anti-aircraft regiment, yeah. Which lasted for about 2 to 3 years.
And you found that training was interesting?
Oh, it was, and because it kept me very busy for a start, as I'm sure we can all tell you in those days. Yeah, it was interesting because its role and its equipment was quite wide, Physical, if you're as a gun number, regardless of what type of equipment you're on, it was a very physical thing. And the other aspect of it, because of working in a control room, it was quite complicated. And for me, I found it difficult because I've never been really mechanical or minded or anything like that. You've got a vast room like this full of technical type equipment. Yeah. But you learned.
Yes. How about you, Ray? What was your training?
Well, put it this way. Terry, when I joined in 58, when did you join?
Left.
I joined in 53.
I joined in 53.
Terry joined in 53, you see. Now, he just said that he went straight into Ironside Troop, where I went into Recruits Troop and had 6 weeks with recruits. You know, doing Peter said, the usual square bashing, putting your kit together, learning how to lay all your bedding out and things like that. And
Did you do any gun drill?
no gun drill whatsoever.
No gun drill?
No gun drill whatsoever. You see, and that was it. It wasn't until after the 6 weeks, I then went on leave because it was Christmas. Came back in January to join Gun Troop, you know, and that's when you started your trade training. Everybody had a basic, well, in our case, everybody had basic guns and separated them out, and I became a TARA, what they call a Technical Assistant Royal Artillery, which was supposed to have been the cream of the gunners sort of thing. You know, no different. I mean, you worked in the command post rather than on the guns. And that was it. And I started my...
You didn't have trumpets and bugles, did you, when you joined?
Yeah, we still did sounding.
You did?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
they'd...
No, Badge Hunt was...
We were all issued with a trumpet and a bugle.
Yeah, Badge Hunt, and we had to go twice
In the
a week.
morning, we paraded in service dress, buttons all up the front, tight collar, and you had your haversack with your PT kit, your mug and your knife, fork and spoon, any books for education, because we got a lot of education, and your trumpet on your back and your bugle in your hand. And they both had to be immaculate, polished. And we had sounding lessons, what they called sounding.
That's what they call the sounding, yeah.
And the instructors would take everybody, that was everybody in the regiment had to do this. And I got selected for the band, which I didn't enjoy. Didn't enjoy being in the band.
What didn't you like about it?
I just didn't... it wasn't what I joined the army for, to march up and down blowing a trumpet. So I got my father to write a letter to the battery commander, which he did. I got out the band, they took me out the band, but being as I had the full kit, which is RHA dismounted dress, they put me on sword guard. We had a ceremonial sword guard with big cavalry sabres and for visiting. Instead of having a guard with rifles at the main gate, you had a sword guard. And that was okay, because that wasn't every day.
It was different with me, see, because I still did the sounding, but I joined a PT display team. And most of my time, because I was, besides the PT display team, I was in the regimental cricket team, regimental football team, things like that. And
It's very sporty.
I was captain of the junior leaders team at the time. And as I said, I mean, I enjoyed sounding. I mean, I still meet quite a few people who were sounders at the time who were responsible for me going to King's Troop. Come to that later.
Yeah.
But,
did you have best leather competitions?
yes, very well.
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
Once a term, each troop went into the gymnasium, and on the floor you put your green lightweight blanket, and on there was your best boots, your leather belt,
Chin straps.
your chin strap, and they all had to be highly polished. Even the soles of the boots, the instep of the sole of the boot, with the correct number of studs and everything at it. And then they came along and they marked. You got marks, and for champion, and it all went towards champion troop at the end of the end of the year.
There were 12 troops, which I will say that I think we came 11th once.
Yeah.
11th once.
Oh, dear.
Somebody had a bright idea that on this, if you remember the old type guitars, were brown on the outside and very light brown, and they mingled in like a red rosewood. But if you did it with dark tan polish and then on the centre used light tan polish or oxblood, it would come out like that.
And they used to pass the leather belt. I was issued with a brand new one that was covered with verdigris and grease. Oh. The thing was, when someone mustered into man service, they used to hand their belt back to someone and hand another one in.
Yeah.
I eventually finished up with a belt. It was obviously pre-war. It was paper thin, and I never had to polish it. All I had to do was
Just a bit, yeah.
There'd been
and rub it
years
with a
of
duster. It was immaculate, and the brass buckle was that thin because it had been polished that often. And when I left, I passed it on to somebody else.
Because it was brass then, not stay bright, wasn't it?
Yeah.
brass
Yeah.
those days.
Yeah.
And to clean our belts, we all had a nail, and we get on our hands and knees on the barrack room floor, put the nail through an eye hole on the belt, and stretch the belt out down the floor, and then polish it on the floor.
I've never heard of that.
Oh yes.
My goodness. Peter, was it the same with you with your kit?
No.
What happened
No,
to you
No,
with your kit?
as a national serviceman, went through, obviously, like everybody, went through the basic training, which is being made physically fit initially, and then on to whatever job you were doing. In my case, everybody did, whatever equipment you had, everybody did gun drill for a number of weeks, and that was basically, it was all about working as a team. It didn't mean you'd ever serve on that type of gun. It was just the fact that you did the drill to bring into play this working as a team all the time.
The £25 was the basic gun.
Gun that everybody spent 2
Everybody
weeks
had
on.
£25.
Yeah, regardless of where you went. I mean, I saw it for a few weeks, 25, and then I went into a completely different range of guns because they were heavy anti-aircraft
The
guns.
5.5s and things like
Big
that.
heavy things that some were static because remember it's 50s and really everything's still on a war footing, you know. The Cold War had come as it became known, and so we could go around 2 or 3 places on the coast. You could actually live fire these equipments, and you're talking big stuff, you know, 5.5s and 7 point somethings and whatever, you know. Good, big, heavy, everything mechanical or electrical, yeah. But still had to do every year occasional work on things like the 25-pounder, the basic gun at that time for all to keep the team working that up, yes.
Thinking about the uniform issued, Ray, what did you think of the uniform that you had to wear?
What, this one?
Yes. No.
No, in Boyster.
As a recruit.
I never thought anything of it. I mean,
I never thought about it at all.
No, because that's what we were issued. I'd never had a uniform before, except when I was in the Boys Brigade. But that was not the
When
only
we got our battle dress at the end, in my final term, I was issued with my battle dress, and we had a troop photograph taken, and there's all the boys in service dress, and I'm there with one other chap in the middle of the second row in battle dress, looking very proud of myself. Yeah,
So you found battle dress comfortable?
yeah, it was okay.
Why I was at the stage where I got issued with battle dress when we left boys service. Went to Hong Kong and got what then the number 2 dress. This was 61.
Yeah,
61, the number 2. Well, first of all, when I was in Hong Kong, we had the tropical olive greens, the OGs. You know, but when I came back, everything was number 2 dress.
Yeah.
By that time, and battle dress was over. So I wasn't in it all that long. You know.
So you didn't find it itchy or?
Well, the shirt more than likely.
Yeah, the
because
shirts were, but the one that was next to your skin, they were rough.
Shirt
weren't they?
care. The old
Yeah.
shirt's care.
Yeah.
You know.
Was that the woolen
rough.
shirt?
Yeah, yeah.
But it was quite rough. I'd never had one, you know, before that, had a shirt like that, itchy and scratchy. But they soon, you know, with washing everywhere, all that sort of thing.
I come back from the Middle East, and I went to 9-4 Regiment for training, and of course they were all in number 2 dress, and there were 3 of us, in battle dress, and we were objects of
Yeah.
curiosity. Why are you wearing battle dress? They said, because we haven't got anything else to wear, and we had to be issued with it.
Yeah.
But people looked aghast. Why are you wearing battle dress? Yeah.
Gosh. Was there any, if you didn't keep your kit, if you didn't keep it tidy, were there any punishments?
Oh,
for
yes.
people? What
Yeah.
happened if you...
Well, I mean, on any parade, you know, especially first morning parade, it was always, you had to be at your best. Not in your best kit, but clean, tidy, shaved, everybody. Whether you shaved or not, you learned to shave. I mean, I didn't shave.
One of our lads in boys' service, the troop sergeant said to him, "Have you shaved this morning?" And he said, "I only shave once a week, sir." He said, "You're in the army now, you shave every day."
So basically, if you didn't, you had to do simply to
Yeah.
conform. But and it was the same with national
Yeah.
service
With everybody else, yeah.
as they described. Yeah, just the same.
So you were taught how to lay your kit out for inspection.
Oh.
What happened, Ray?
Well, in boys' service, it was very strict in actual fact. Everything had to be in an exact position. You
Was
had
it?
the bed made down, you had the bedroll,
Your blankets.
you know,
Yeah.
the bedroll, which was a blanket.
A blanket, a sheet, a blanket.
sheet,
Yeah.
a blanket, and then a blanket round it. You know, all had to be at the correct width, like that. In actual, it got to the stage where you didn't sleep. And
Especially
Night before
Right,
inspection,
night
Yeah,
before,
you-
big
you pick your
inspection.
bed block up and put it on the floor, and you just slept under your green blanket.
The green
Because
blanket.
otherwise you had to fold it all up in the morning.
Good.
Every morning you had to do this. you
But
see.
my dad cut me
Yeah.
wood, because the sheets were an inch thick.
An inch, yeah.
I forget the width, but he cut me
It
pieces
was
of
your arm, it
plywood.
was your arm, wasn't it?
Plywood, and so that the blankets and the sheets all look square and nice, and the kit in the locker, like your spare shirts, underwear, vests, things like
Squared
that.
off.
I think it was 10 inches or 12 inches.
A4 size.
That's right,
You know,
A4
you
size.
could put an A4 sheet of
And
paper.
because all you've got to do is get a PT vest, stick this piece of wood in, stuff it round, stick it in, and it looks immaculate.
And this was true of national service in the first few weeks, just like they've described for I suppose up to about 8 to 10 weeks,
But
exactly like they described their experience.
But joining the regulars when we left boys' service, we went to our regular. I was fortunate because I went straight out to Hong Kong. You know, after I'd done continuation, so I went to Hong Kong, which was OG's, which I had a boot boy.
Olive green.
I had a boot boy who did all the cleaning of boots and everything.
Yeah.
You know,
A few,
you never cleaned any kit. You know,
just the same.
So what happened if your kit wasn't up to scratch?
You got punished.
In what way?
Usually extra guards, extra parades again, same thing in the evening maybe, and again in the evening, with my experience.
a lot of show
and then,
parades, things like that.
yeah,
If it was something semi-serious, you could be officially charged,
yeah.
which was a
252.
252, which was a charge, a disciplinary charge, and you were marched in front of the battery commander, and he could issue you confined to barracks, and confined to barracks, you had to report to the guard room. What was it? 5 minutes after reveille. So you had to get an early call from somebody and get up, and you had to be immaculately dressed 5 minutes after reveille. You would then be dismissed. Do your normal work during the day, but in the evening you reported back to the guard room, and you scrubbed out fire buckets, you scrubbed the cells, you were dismissed at 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Unless you were lucky and got punishments at the cookhouse, which meant
Oh.
you could pinch food.
Yeah.
And do you know, out of a pound of butter, you can actually get 54 equally sized bits.
He's not heard this one before.
But you've got to have a hot knife.
Yeah.
Punishments, was they described?
But remember them big wooden racks in the kitchen with all the plates in?
Plates, yeah.
I was on fatigues, and the cook sergeant said, get the broom and sweep it was before mealtime. And I went and got the broom, came out, and the broom caught the edge of that rack. Down it came, crash! And he come out and he said, "You're going to pay for every one of those." And I was terrified. What was it? We were on 17 and 6 a week. I can't pay for all those. In the event, I didn't pay for any of them.
No.
But I was absolutely terrified.
Oh, I got well paid compared to them.
Yeah.
As a national serviceman, it was standard rate, 28 shillings a week. And I didn't have a choice. When I went in the first day in whatever it was called, he says, "You've got a mum?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Right, you've got 28 shillings as it was, 1 shilling a day will go to your mum." You had no choice, really. You know, and then a shilling a week
In Posby.
back savings and a
Shilling-
shilling a week back
No,
down.
it was
For us,
shilling,
it was a shilling.
shilling a day. I got 28 shillings. Shilling a day, that's my mum.
Yeah,
It was a shilling a day, went into Posby.
for
So
savings, yeah.
That was 14 shillings. 7 shillings went into what they call your own serving, wasn't it?
What was it called? I forgot.
Stoppages and...
It was a long time ago.
No, then no, let me finish. And then that was that 7 shilling back into savings sort of thing for when you went on leave at the end.
Yes.
And 7 shillings to spend, for the week. The first day I arrived there, they said, right, I had to go out, I had to buy boot polish, black,
Polly.
brown or dark tan,
Yeah, dark tan.
light tan, brasso, blanco,
And it had to be kiwi.
yeah, kiwi, dusters, and things like that. If you tried using cherry blossom or anything like that,
My dad got me 2 big tins of cherry blossom. Sergeant saw it, he said, "Get rid of that," he said, "or I'll get rid of it."
it was blasphemy, wasn't it?
It was boot polish. So what I did, I hid it, and then when my kiwi tin was empty, I got my knife and I scooped it out and put it in the
But
tin.
I tell you something, cherry blossom was not as good as kiwi.
No, it wasn't. No.
Really? That's good. It wasn't
I still use kiwi now.
But we were talking earlier about punishment. One day I was rude to an NCO, and I was up before the battery commander. 6 strokes, march out. I was flogged. 6 strokes. Bent over a chair, Sergeant Major administered the punishment with his thick cane. 6 wallops on your bottom. It didn't hurt, but it was the humiliation. I was 17 years age, it was the humiliation. Years later, and I mean years, 30, 40 years later, I was talking to my father, and he said, "Oh yes," he said, "I remember." He said, "When you joined boy service, I got a letter from the regiment saying, if your son commits any misdemeanours while he's with us, have we your permission to administer corporal punishment?" And my dad said I wrote back, "Certainly." I said, "Thank you, Father." But having said that, other lads who done worse than me, they got 28 days CB. I had 6 strokes, it was over and done with. Finished.
Talking about when I first joined what we call troops, gun troops, you have the line side and whatever, we joined troops. About 3 or 4 days, and this guy, this room NCO, in actual fact, he was a Lance Bombardier, came up, threw on my bed his webbing, his belt and his gaiters, cleaned those, I blancoed them.
Polly's.
We had a boxing match that night against the Army Corps. Remember, you had to go to the cinema up through the gate at the top.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Against the Army Corps. And I thought, I'm not doing anybody else's cleaning, you can do his own. Like that. And we sat there and he said, representing the Royal Armoured Corps, it's, middleweights, so-and-so. Like
And it was him, was it?
And it was this guy, representing the junior leaders. Oh, let me finish, please. Representing the junior leaders, actually, Junior Gunner King, like that. I said, oh, see that guy? I said, he'd give me his webbing to do, and like that. I said, no way I'm going to do it. Ding, ding, wallop.
Where is that webbing?
The Armoured Corps guy went down, and in 10 seconds, including the count, Junior Gunner King was his.
Where's that
and
webbing?
And he said, where is that? And I'd gone. I hours away.
Yeah,
I
boys.
was doing webinars
Yeah.
like that.
It wasn't quite the same on Mount, you know. On national service, it was different to their experience.
But,
of course.
but also don't forget, not so much you, but bullying in
Oh,
boys
yeah.
service. That was really bad as well. I mean,
Was it?
you had to have you could never ever go with wax in your ears unless you get a bath or anything like that. If you had dirty feet, you were in a cold bath,
Yeah, that was.
and you're in a cold bath, and you were stuck in there. And everybody,
That was true in national service.
yeah, and
Those first weeks.
yeah, but this lasted all the way through. And,
So you were actually physically inspected and to see.
not so this from your own troop. So this from your own view.
Some
I felt
people-
fortunate I never went.
Some people wouldn't shower. So we did it for them.
We showered them.
Usually with
Yeah.
a yard brush,
Yeah.
if I remember.
Carbonic.
Yeah, right the way through. Yes, I mean that's what's always put me off having a shower. You know, I didn't have a cold bath. You know.
No.
But if they throw me in the bath, I'd
They're
disappear.
drowned anyway. Well, different experience, obviously, from theirs as boy services, we used to call it, didn't you? Until they came, 17 and a half did you come on to MAC service?
Yeah, everything.
It was boys' regiment when I was in it,
Yeah.
and when I left, it was boys' regiment. But I think about 6 months later, it changed to junior leaders.
The
Yes.
junior leaders,
Yeah,
regular
junior
volunteers.
leaders,
Yeah.
Going on to the food for a moment, because you just reminded me of that funny incident.
Mm.
What did you think of the food, Peter?
In the first few months in the army, it was awful. They used to have a brave, usually a second lieutenant.
It was awful.
Every lunchtime, used to walk around and say any complaints, and he just got shouted at.
Because the annoying thing was,
awful those days.
I joined in the February, and we had St Barbara's Day, which is beginning of December sometime,
No,
isn't it?
yeah.
Who's the patron saint of the Royal Artillery, and we all filed into the cookhouse for lunch, and we couldn't believe it. It was a roast turkey dinner, just like your mother could have cooked. It was beautiful. And our argument was, why can't they do this every day? And when we went down, I went down to Woolwich a couple of times with the band, and Woolwich had just started self-service at the hot plate. And we filed in, and the cooks were all lined up behind, but they were sort of 2 paces back, and we got a plate. And they said, go on, lad, help yourself. Eh? Help yourself.
That was much
So, it was marvellous to us, because back at Hereford, the food was dreadful.
Gosh.
Dreadful.
But I thought, I thought the food was marvellous.
To what? Yeah.
Because when I was at home, you know, I was a very, very poor family. And they loved it but they were quite happy when I joined the army.
Another.
You know,
less-
because it was a less mouth to feed.
What was a typical day's diet then?
Ooh, honestly, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
You
Remember
know.
what you had for breakfast?
Right,
Every-
and one thing I remember about breakfast is that you pick up half a slice of bread, and on one end there's a little square of butter, a little pat of butter, and the other end
Told you,
was,
54
or
pieces.
margarine, and the other end was marmalade, like that. And I was saying, how do you slice this? And, like that? And the guy went, done.
Egg or bacon. Sausage or bacon, sausage or bacon. You wouldn't believe it.
Tomatoes or cornflakes. You know, nothing likewise like sausage or bacon, fried egg or scrambled egg.
Yeah.
You know, beans or tomatoes. It was nonsensical.
We were permanently hungry.
I was going
Yeah.
to say, for young men, grown men.
Yeah.
And this was true in national servicemen because dozens and dozens evenings, especially in the winter when it got darker, we'd raid the cookhouse just to looking for dry bread, crusts and things like
Dry
that.
bread, yeah.
Because obviously, but
My mother used to send me
Growing up in
food
rations.
parcels.
Or food party. You
Food
get-
parcel
Oh.
once a month. And it was normally a big fruit cake and what was those things? Wagon wheels
Wagon
and penguins.
And you sit in there, the gang, everybody in the room, all round you, talking into this.
So did you all have food parcels?
well, I
never
got
got
to that
one. No,
stage.
sorry,
No, I used to go in the first few months. You always go 36-hour or 48-hour as a national service, and everybody, the old regiment, national service. And my mum baked every day of my life. It was only when I came in the army that I saw a sliced loaf, because my mum baked virtually every day, big family. And I used to come back and you could smell me on the train because it was all fresh baked bread. And you got in the bar room at 10:30, 11 o'clock, and there'd be 6 or 7 loaves still hot. But by the time you went to bed, there was nothing left. Everybody left it dry, you know, because fresh bread, lovely, you know, smell followed you all. But nobody had any butter because everything was still rationed in 4950.
So you'd have your breakfast, would you get some lunch?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, like at 10 o'clock when it comes to what we used to call an apple break, we used to have a break. You would go into the hangar.
Oh, yeah.
You would get a mug of cocoa.
Oh, this is in Boise.
Yeah. A mug of cocoa, and you would get a slice of toast, and there'd be a dish, that shape, you know, 14 by 10 by 2, you know, yeah? And that'd be melted margarine in there, and you would get your slice of toast, and you would dip it in, like
So
that.
you got
Yeah.
You'd never have bread pudding?
Oh yes, yes. I mean, this is
Bread
this
pudding.
sort of thing as well. Thick bread pudding, not
With a
really-
mug of cocoa at 11 o'clock in the
60s.
morning, it's
Oh,
lovely.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if you tried to get two, if you tried to sneak 2 slices like that, you know, without anybody looking at it, all of a sudden a stick would appear on the back of your hand, and he'd push it in, you know, like that. And for the rest of the day, you had
Although I didn't
margarine all over you.
No, I never experienced that.
This time it had set.
There wasn't enough margarine around.
Yeah. Of course, and then
The orderly officer came in one day at Hereford and he was going from table to table saying, are there any complaints? But we could hear these chaps on the next table, I'm going to complain. Will you complain with me? Yeah, I'm going to complain.
Yeah.
And it was cheese and potato pie, one little spoonful. And the orderly officer got to there, is there any complaints? And they said, yes, sir. One of them said, I haven't had enough to eat. And he turned to the cook sergeant who was with him. Did you hear that, Sergeant so-and-so? He said, yes, sir. Have you got a solution for that? He said, yes, sir. Shouted to one of his corporals who come out with a, what was it, 14, but...
yeah, 10 by 2.
Yeah,
yeah.
full of cheese and potato pie. Put it between them on the table. Eat. He made them eat it.
I can imagine even if they
Yeah.
didn't like it.
He made them eat it.
I can't imagine.
The whole pie?
The whole thing, yeah.
Was
It was
thick?
about 14 by 12 bit for 2.
I can't imagine.
Something else. Cheese and potato pie.
I bet he didn't ask again.
They never complained again. No. No.
Did you have any sort of puddings or sweets or jam roly-poly or
Semolina.
semolina?
Semolina.
No.
What was the other one? Oh yeah, that one that's like frog spawn.
Tapioca.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh.
No, different with me. You got a selection. I mean, I say a selection. During the week, you got a different thing on tea time. Very often it was unpopular stuff like that. But yeah, occasionally, and sometimes with custard. Ooh, treat days.
They still serve that here, don't they? Semolina.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's still about. Oh, it's.
There's always a choice though here. You don't have to have it.
Going back to your education, because you're very young, did your education continue with schooling?
Good then.
I was fortunate when I joined. They got a report from my school that said I was at technical college. Got a report from my school. You did junior, intermediate, and senior, wasn't it? Or which was 3rd class, 2nd class.
Third class, second class, first
Yeah.
class. Yeah.
When I was there, they called it junior, intermediate, and senior, like that. I was exempt junior and I was exempt intermediate, which was like 3rd class, 2nd class.
So was I.
And first class, I was exempt all subjects except map reading and I forget the other one.
Military geography.
No, I forget which.
Is that used to be?
That was it.
I failed maths.
Yeah. So anyway, and after the first term, I'd finished my schooling as such. And they said, oh, well, you now sit your GCs, you know, and I said, no, I hate the school. This is from, I said, no, obviously wished I'd have carried on, you know.
I must.
This was A level. I mean, I got 5 O levels, but I then
Mine was different because, as a national serviceman, and generally older, at least 18 and a half sort of thing. But yes, one did have to sit your third class certificate of education, which was all fairly basic stuff even for me. And then second class, and then eventually first class later on, because you had to have a first class certificate of education to become a sergeant, for example, to have 3 stars. Otherwise, as a private lance corporal, you attend school every week as my regiment.
There's mine.
Ah, so this is your certificate. Oh, we'll take a picture of that.
Same as that, yeah.
Senior Test Apprentice Trained. Lovely, we'll do a picture of that afterwards.
And I mastered a term early because the troop commander said, you've got your first class education, it's pointless you staying here till the summer, be gone. So I left early.
So you felt you got a good education, you got...
Oh yes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
Once I got in the army.
We did in boy service, we did education every day.
Yeah.
Every
We'd
day.
have 1 or 2 lessons, I imagine, every day. Yeah. No, we're different again as a national service because you're older, you're 18 and a quarter. But you still had to go through the same sort of system. So I had to sit for my third, and then you went on to second. And first, you had to have your first class certificate to get promotion of bombardier or corporal. To go to sergeant, you had to have your first class certificate of education. In the gunners, I don't know if it's true of other regiments.
I can't remember.
Royal Engineers, I bet.
I couldn't tell you, the gun was definitely...
And there's a difference because I found I didn't know what trigonometry was. It was a new word to me. But being in the artillery, to get your certificate, you had to do trig. And I didn't know what it was. So again, I can thank the army for giving me a better education. And because we'd stopped by 14, I would never have gone to do anything like that.
Well, all gunnery is trigonometry.
And as I say, I didn't even know what the word was.
So Ray, what was your first posting?
My first posting we used to leave boys service, and where did you go to?
Germany.
No, Constroop.
Germany. Sorry?
You did it in Constroop, Fox Troop or...
Oh, left boy service, went to continuation troop.
Yeah, that's like...
We were the first ones to do it.
Yeah. I went and we went down to Larkhill, attached to Larkhill for 6 weeks, where I then got my B2, Tara,
And then off to Germany.
Then I then got posted, first of all, to King's Troop. I was small. And they said, oh, you're the right size for King's Troop, yes, and also you blow a trumpet, and things like that. So I went there and at St John's Wood, and got there and they gave me this beast. Oh, it was massive. To me, it was massive. It was like these beams up here, that's how.
Where was it?
King's Troop.
Oh, yes.
And they said, what you do in actual fact, you should be very careful with this because it doesn't like the sound of its hooves on concrete. And up where the riding school was, which was about 100 yards away, down this concrete path. And as we went along, I was leaping up in the air like this, and this horse kept pulling its head up. Anyway, got on there, and the first day was no good. Second day was no good. I was every morning they go down Green Park, the troop. And this guy called Jack Potter, he said to me, the first day, he said, somebody will hit the horse and it will start off and it will gallop. As soon as it starts galloping, get off. No matter how fast you think it's going to go faster if you stop on. I did stop, God, it frightened me to death, and I left King's Troop and I went to 4th Regiment in Hong Kong.
Can you remember what the horse's name was?
No. I know I called it. So I'm not going to tell you. I went to Hong Kong and spent 3 years there. So that was a good posting.
What was your first posting?
Well, I only did 10 days at Oswestry and then was posted to Gravesend in Kent, straight to a regiment, where I spent just over 3 years, where in fact I met my wife, Saturday night dance and that. But my first posting overseas was to Hong Kong, and I think I was lucky in my service that I went back to Hong Kong again some years later, only 3 or 4 years later, so I had 2 postings there, and Hong Kong was a plum posting, at least it was for my period of time anyway. Yeah, but I can't remember where I went from there.
There were 2 of us in our, who went to this one regiment in Germany, and we were at Woolwich, and there was a big draft going to Germany. So we went to the office, and the other gunner was senior to me, so he got the big brown envelope with all our documents in. And he said, Roy Preston his name was, and he said, we were both 17 years of age. We said, okay, how do we get to Germany? And the clerk said, follow that draft tonight. So they all formed up and marched down the hill in Woolwich to the station, and we just tagged on behind. We got on a train to Liverpool Street, and you wouldn't believe, the platform at Liverpool Street was just a mass of khaki, all going to Germany, from Liverpool Street to Harwich, where the ferry was waiting. The Parkeston Quay and the Vienna. You got on this boat, they gave you a pillar slip, don't ask me why, they gave you a pillar slip, and you slept on the boat overnight, and you disembarked at the Hook of Holland. And everyone was marching away. We said, what do? We didn't know where to go. So we saw a sign that said RTO, and I thought, that's something to do with transport. So we went in, and there was a staff sergeant in there, and he said, what regiment are you going to? And we said, 6th Field Regiment. They were at Hona, we believe. You want yellow train number 2, because there was all these trains lined up. Yellow train number 2. So we found yellow train number 2 and got on it. And off we went. And you got fed on the train. It was marvellous, very comfortable. We got to Celle about 10 o'clock at night, pitch black dark. We got out, we thought, now where do we go? And there was some lads there from the 4th Hussars. And we said, whereabouts is Hona? They said, jump on our truck, that's where we're going. And so they dropped us off at our main gate. And the 2 of us, I spent my second night in a guardroom cell because it was too late to go anywhere else.
So you're actually expected to just make your own way there?
Make your own way there, just the 2 of us. But the big draft that was in front of us, they had what they called a draft conducting NCO in charge of them. Probably a couple of them to shepherd them along. We were on our own. We didn't have a clue. Gosh. You know, we had to find our own way.
What about you, Ray? What was your first posting?
I say, Hong Kong, 4th Field Regiment. And it was amusing, actual fact. Because I was on leave before we went there. And this girl, when I said to her, I was in Hong Kong for 3 years.
Did you fly to Hong Kong?
Yeah. I'll tell you the story about it. 3 years, I was in Hong Kong. Oh, I can't be missing for 3 years. Can't we get married? I was 17, like that. Went on to tell my mum, I said...
was this Pauline?
No. I said to her, I said, Marie wants to get married. You're not getting married. I said, you go to Hong Kong, and that was it. Mm-hmm. So I said to her, no, we're not getting married. I'm going to Hong Kong. Left a week later, I was on the plane out to Hong Kong, Istanbul, Karachi, Bombay, landed in Hong Kong. First morning there, sleeping underneath a mozzie net, and the guys there had put this praying mantis on the inside, like that.
Standing job.
And, and let's face it, praying mantis is harmless, like that. Unless you've never been outside Sheffield, sort of thing, like that. I opened my eyes, and I saw this praying mantis there, like this. Close my eyes again, it'll go. So anyway, I'm prayed, and it's a mail, so I opened there, letter of Adams. Would have been here at night, so I got this letter like that. Opened it up. Dear Ray, I'm sorry we can't get married, I don't love you and all this. I'm going to Dear John letter. I'd probably been there one day. And this was the girl that wanted to marry me. The letter must have been on the plane. I brought it over with me. She could have given me this. I could have saved her a stamp. No, I arrived in Hong Kong, and I was fortunate that the guy who was in Boy Scouts with me, a guy called McGinty, we were footballers together, played for the army together, and he, ended up as my best man when I got married many years later. And so Hong Kong 4th Regiment was my first posting.
What did you think of Hong Kong, Peter?
I thought it was brilliant. Both tours were brilliant for us.
I
I went out initially on my own, on a troop ship, but it wasn't too long. My wife followed about 3 months after. Again, an air trip was more exciting than mine because they went through the Bay of Biscay in a terrific storm, and the ship had to dock at
Gibraltar.
Yeah, Gibraltar, to have its lifeboats all rebuilt or new ones put aboard. The trip was terrifying for her. She'd then got our baby, I think, about 4 or 5 months old, Lindsay. So the rest of the trip was fine. It was just that one storm for 2 or 3 days through Biscay. And Hong Kong we lived. Then you had to go out and find because I hadn't sufficient points for a married quarter, you had to find your own accommodation. But there's plenty of people there before you advised you. And I found quite a nice flat, reasonable price. Only a bus ride from work in Hong Kong. And my wife and baby joined me. And we had a good 2.5 years there. But on the island for that tour, only went over to the mainland when we used to go on exercises as such. Second time we flew out with the three girls and wife, and that was easy because the regiment met me. I'd already got a 3-bedroom flat set up. The regiment had done all that, picked up, given sort of some local money, and told to report in next Wednesday. So I had about 4 days before I had to actually start work. So mine was fine. Not upsetting.
We used to sit on the edge of the Suez Canal and watch the troop ships going down, loaded with people with white knees and that, and we'd all shout, "Get your knees brown!" Because literally, you're sat here. The hull of the troop ship is where that wall is there. Exactly, you could shout up to them as the ship went past, and then a month or so later, that same troop ship would come back, full of people going home. We didn't shout at them because they were going home. Yeah.
So from Germany, you went to Suez?
I went to Germany, and then I was there a year the first time, and then I was posted to Egypt, Canal Zone.
And what were your duties, Ray, in Hong Kong?
In Hong Kong, I was a TARA, Technical Assistant Royal Artillery. I was broke from the time I arrived there, like that. Borrowed $100 off my boot boy because I'd run out of money. Gave him $25 a week, that was the interest. Crazy. And no, it was just general work. We did clean equipment, worked in the survey stores, and did exercises, and that was it. There was no laid timetable down. You were the same.
No.
You went down to your gun.
Yeah, I was a regimental surveyor, what they called a regimental surveyor, and we went to the stores we skied most of the day, to be quite frank.
Exactly. Yeah.
You went in the stores and you shut the door behind you, and you just kept quiet and hoped that no one would come in.
Yeah.
One day, this is when we moved along from Egypt to North Africa, to near Tripoli. It's in the news a lot lately, that coast. And there was 4 of us, and we all met up in this other NCO's bunk in Sea Battery, and he had a case of beer. So we're all sat in his bunk, drinking beer, and their battery sergeant major was a chap called Cabby Symes, strict disciplinarian. Everyone was terrified of him. And we sat drinking beer, and all of a sudden we heard voices in the distance, and the chap whose room it was, he said, God, he said, I forgot. The battery commander's doing a walk round of the accommodation. And the way the building was built, there was a long corridor. And there's no way could we have got out and got away, so we just sat there frozen. Cabby signs, and then we heard the battery commander saying, whose room is this, Sergeant Major? Oh, it's Bombardier so-and-so. He's up at the gun park at the minute, and he opened the door, looked in, saw us all sat there frozen, and he said, no problem in here, sir, and shut the door. And he never said a word about that.
Yeah.
And we're all sat there with bottles of beer. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Frightened to death, that it must have been.
Yes.
Peter, where did you go after Hong Kong?
Back to the UK, to Bulford, which is well known by
That's
all.
where I
Bulford,
went.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think most of us at some stage have been there. In my occasions, twice, but both times in married quarters. Yeah. And then, having got back, I think about 18 months later, got posted to Germany, where I spent 5 years, and then came back for 2 or 3 years, went back to Hong Kong, and then back to Germany, where I actually spent 12 years in Germany, which is quite a long time compared to most people's normal postings. But by that time, I'd come on what they call the long service list, which means you can stay on beyond your normal 22 years. Yeah.
What
And-
about you, Ray?
Came back from Hong Kong in August 64, went on leave, came back in September to be told that in February we'd be going to Borneo for 9 months. And that was it. So we spent about 6 months in Bulford and went out to Borneo for 9 months. You know, which, as far as I was concerned, a single guy, there was no problems. I loved it. You know, but for the married guys, weeping and wailing and that and
Yeah.
things.
It was a problem for the married.
Yeah, well, they didn't want losing a family again for 9 months. You
No,
know,
we all-
they'd had a great time in Hong Kong, and now they...
I did something which surprised myself when it happened. I finished up doing a year at Bristol University, which one normally doesn't think of that sort of thing, but simply I did on a course called Family Studies, a year. Great. It wasn't, and I was in Germany, but of course it was easy enough to, with the car, to go on at the end of it. So it was a good posting. And at the end of that, I got posted as, what did we call ourselves? An estate warden, which was basically dealing with accommodation and the families that lived in it. The accommodation was never a problem, but some of the families. Yeah. But it was a good course, interesting, because who else could go to university while you're in the army and be paid for it? You know?
Absolutely.
Apart from it was a problem to drive. I think they all became used to driving across on the ferry and driving to Germany and coming. Yeah.
Did you all learn to drive in the army, by the way?
Yes.
Many years later,
Yeah.
I didn't like driving.
I took my test in Kenya, or Kenya as we're supposed to call it now. They said, because I used to drive anyway, and I was a sergeant, and so, I think it was the battery sergeant major who said, you haven't got a licence. I said, I know. He said, well, you shouldn't be driving.
Yeah.
He said, get yourself tested. So I went and collected a Land Rover, went to the REME detachment, and this young officer came out. He was going to test me. So we drove out the camp gate, down to the railway crossing, onto the main road. Now in Kenya, there's only one road. Goes from the coast to Uganda, one road. And we got on the road, drove up the road 20 miles to Nakuru. And just as you get to Nakuru, there's the War Memorial on a roundabout. We went round the roundabout, back down the road, back into camp. That was my driving test.
Mine, I suppose, because I got...
Didn't do a 3-point turn or a reverse or anything.
But like Terry said, you all drive, because you're on the ranges quite a lot of your life, you know. Range roads are clear of speeding traffic. And I got posted to the Essex Yeomanry as a PSI, permanent staff instructor. And I got there, went in, saw the RSM, then the adjutant, a Thursday again. And he said, "Have you got a driving licence?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Right, Mr. The RSM." He said, "Driving licence." And they took me outside, we got in the Land Rover, we turned out the drill hall, and he said, "Stop!" Because the emergency stopped. And he said, "Okay," went back and he issued the
That was it.
pink slip. That was it.
I
I mean,
learned-
we'd driven a lot, like I think many of us did, but off-road on these range roads and things like that. So, yeah, and I know why I got the driving license, because the following night I had to go to one of these some school where they did cadets, and I was going along to invigilate, I think the word was, some tests that they had to do. And if I hadn't been able to drive, they'd have had to pay a civilian, one of the permanent staff, overtime to take me there and back. That's how I got my drive. I know for a fact it was simply.
I learned to drive in North Africa, and our troop sergeant was teaching us, about 4 of us in a Champ, an Austin Champ, big heavy thing. And we drove to Misurata, where all that fighting was. And we got to a hill, and I was driving. When halfway up this hill, he said, "Stop." So I stopped. He said, "Give us your wristwatch." I said, "Pardon?" He said, "Give me your wristwatch." So I took my watch off, give it to him, and he put it under the back wheel. "Okay," he said, "on you go."
You weren't going to run.
I had the handbrake right but then it go, boom, shot up the hill. Yeah, yeah.
Good one, that.
And he did that with everybody. All the guys, he'd take their watches off.
But you hadn't had any prior knowledge.
No.
So, Ray, did you not enjoy?
I wasn't interested in driving whatsoever. And I said it's pity now, because I love driving now. And so when I had the family, when we went to Germany, Pauline came with me. And I was there for, 66 to 69, that's just after you came back from England. 69, I went to Rill for 2 years away, to the Junior Tradesmen's Regiment. And there's another guy with me, George Room. Now, George was a driver and signaller and everything like that. I was, as a surveyor. The Junior Tradesmen's Regiment had all these different jobs. And when I went there, the 2IC was the guy who was my battery commander when I was in boy service, a guy called Peter Brill. And he said, "Right, young Adams, where are we going to put..." I was a sergeant at the time. He said, "Where are we going to put you?" He said, "The driving wing." I said, "Can't drive." "Oh, right. Drill wing." I said, "I haven't been to Pirbright." So he said, "Oh, right. Small arms wing. Where did you go to a small arms training?"
Hive, then.
I said, "I haven't done the course." "No, right. He said, "I know, young drivers phase." So I said, "What do they do?" He says, "Teach me to ride motorbikes." I said, "Well, I can't ride a motorbike." "They can't." "Perfect." And that was with this RMP guy. And so one day they said, "You'll have to learn to drive. Go down to the driving wing." And the civvy there, they sent me to this civvy, called him Snatch Fender. So I thought, right. Got in the Land Rover, did the first, on the Monday, did the water oil fuel tyres, that was it. That was the end of that period. Work ticket. Next day, Snatch Fender, found out why he was called Snatch. Because we were driving along, he said, "Turn left here, turn left here," and that used to snatch
grabbed the wheel.
like that. So anyway, the first day, on the Tuesday, we drove down from Rill down to wherever it was, it's really about 30, 40 miles away, and drove back late afternoon. Next day, Wednesday, drove down a Welsh pool, had some lunch, a few beers, come back, like that. Thursday, drove down Rill, parked up, and the guy said, "Nip up to the naffy and get me a packet of cigarettes, will you?" Like that. So I said, "Oh, I've heard that before, I'll go up there," and, He said, go and get a packet of cigarettes. He said, yeah, you passed. Like that, and that was it.
That was it. Yeah.
And I then never drove again until 82. That was another 10 years.
I never liked driving.
Does what?
you know?
Never liked driving.
My wife did all the driving, and we had an arrangement. Every time we went out, we took turns, and it was always her turn.
So, not my wife.
Yeah.
Correct me, I
Pauline.
know. She's never
That
left.
was Pauline, before she died, she always remember that she had the longest provisional driving licence. Like that. She still had that. In actual fact, I've got it in my room now, Pauline's provisional
Never took.
driving licence. He never took a test. Sat in Morrison's car park, like that. Started it up and he shot forward and shot, that's it, got out. That was it. That was the last time I sat in the
Never
driver's
got
seat.
that far, but she'd been the same. Well,
Did you ever hear about that quartermaster in 18 Regiment at Larkhill? He was ferocious with his driving tests. And one chap I knew, he was stood by the side of the 4-tonner, and he come up, he said, gunner blocks? He said, yes sir. Okay, off you go. So he walked round the vehicle, to have a look at the vehicle. Good. He got in, shut the door, start up. Okay, switch off. You failed. We haven't gone anywhere. You didn't check your mirrors.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't check your
When he
mirrors.
got up into the
So
seat.
you don't just do that with your eyes, do that with your head.
Make sure.
And he failed
Show.
it. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
So Terry, where did you go after Egypt?
Libya, just up the coast. And then we come home to Bulford, same as Peter, and we were there for 3 years, and then we went off to Kenya, which was the best posting I've ever had. It was marvellous.
I was going to ask you all, Peter, what was your best posting, do you think?
Hong Kong, I think.
Well, I think, yes, Hong Kong, Far East twice. You couldn't ask for better. But family-wise, of course, Germany. And it was 5 years and then 12 years. So, in that sense, but for seeing something different, Hong Kong, seeing a different way of life, certainly Hong Kong.
You enjoyed the food and...
Well, yeah, because I'm funny with food. But my wife would eat
Foreign
anything. Yeah, foreign look, me.
But the
she
families,
used to say-
the families were well looked after in Germany, money-wise.
Yes.
There was allowances for everything. Soldiers in this country didn't get it. Some people even argued about it. There was a chap lived next door to me, Tommy Todd. Do you remember? He was
Tom
our
Todd,
mess.
yeah.
His wife and family were back in Newcastle, and he was living in as a single member. He still got allowances for his wife and family, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
What was your favourite posting, Ray?
I like them all.
The where?
I like them all. Every one. I mean, everybody's talking about Hong Kong. I was broke in Hong Kong. I was always broke. All
Short
gunners
of
were
money.
always
Yeah.
broke. We were always short of money and things like that. And doing things to try and get money, like racecourse duty.
Yeah.
You know, we get $30 for doing racecourse duty.
What did that involve?
£2. It was £2. That's
Involved.
No, that's $30 was £2. You know, and that, and you go to the racetrack down Happy Valley, and you would either marshal the crowds and or look after make sure people come into the trainers' enclosure or to the paddock or to the owners, jockeys and riders and things like that, and you get £2 and that's it. And you're thankful of that. You know, and that's it. Germany, I think 66 to 69. Oh, I love Borneo. I like Borneo. You know,
What do you like about it?
So,
you know, soldiering.
Yeah.
It was proper
You
soldier.
know, proper soldiering at last. And, you know, I was with the Argyll and Sullivan Islanders, and I was with those for a bit. And then I was with the Gurkhas.
With the Gurkhas,
You know,
yeah.
And I spent the last month or so with the Marines. You know, and
But the Gurkhas,
on my own. You know.
everything you've heard about them, everything you've read about them, it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are marvellous.
And I had, that's when I think the best time was Borneo. Very close to when we got back, we went to Germany, because by that time I'd got married, went to Germany and had my 2 children. My wife had 2 children, and that was it. And that was 66 to 69.
Aden was wonderful. I spent a year in Aden, and I enjoyed that. Well, we all did, because it was proper soldiering. It was like what it must have been like on the northwest frontier before the war.
So when you say proper soldiering, what do you mean?
Well, you're firing
You're
live
doing your
ammunition.
job. You're doing your job.
You're doing
Rather than just
what
sat there
we're doing what
practicing.
we're trained for. Out my battery in Aden fired in a 12. They fired 22,000 rounds. Now, you in Germany, how many rounds a year? 1,000 rounds for the
If
regiment.
that,
Yeah, something like that. 20. Whether we killed anyone or not, I do not know. I wouldn't have thought so. But it was wonderful. It really was.
So you're on patrol and
Yes.
patrol duty.
Yeah, the one black spot, you know, we can call it a black spot between 66 and 69, even though it was the best year, was we had this guy that came to the regiment at the time. Him.
Oh,
Yes,
Yeah. And that's when our...
that's
our
when
ser-
we first met.
our ser- our s-
1968.
68 you came,
Six-
yeah.
September 1968. He was.
And
I was.
you won't believe it. You were down the survey troop, weren't you, to start off with?
No, I came straight to D Troop in
D Troop.
88 Battery.
And I was D Troop Sergeant.
And I was,
Terry was Troop
I
Sergeant.
was a Sergeant Major.
Major.
And I went away for a bit to the radar and 97 Battery, and then I come back as BSM of 88
See,
Battery.
when he went off, I got D Troop onto the Sergeant Major, and I got Sergeant Major, right? And Teddy came back as Battery Sergeant Major, and I was the Troop Sergeant Major.
And then I got elevated to the exalted rank of RQMS,
And I became
and he became
Battery Sergeant Major of 29 Battery.
of 29 Battery, and I left the army,
And I took over as
and he
RQMS.
took over from me as RQMS.
And that was that was 70...
77 was it? 76?
78 when you left.
Yeah.
Right. Like that. And from 77, right, even coming to here, you were still maintaining contact.
Oh, we kept in touch,
We
yeah.
kept in touch all the time.
On the end of a phone,
you know,
yeah.
the end of the phone, and it might be 3 months, it might be 6 months before.
And I,
you drink for each other.
he said to me, 'cause I was already here, can you chase up my application? And there was a young girl worked in that office. What was her name? I've forgotten her name. Sarah.
Addison.
And I'd go in the office and I'd say, good morning, Sarah. Nothing yet, she's saying.
Knew what you.
She knew what I wanted.
But the best about it is coming here is that I was coming in and I told Terry, I said, I'll be going to join the thing. So anyway, not going into too much detail, I couldn't come because I had an injury to the base of my spine. And I remember phoning up one day and Nora, Terry's wife, answered the telephone. And I said to her, I said, got some bad news. Pauline's been diagnosed as having cancer. This was November. I said, and they hadn't given her long to live, like that. And Nora said, done exactly the same. She said, I'm exactly the same.
Same cancer too.
Both our wives, exactly the same.
Same
like
cancer.
that. Pauline died in February. In March. You know.
But
Pauline died in
my
March.
Nora confounded the doctors.
Yeah.
They weren't going to do any chemotherapy or radiotherapy because at your age it would probably kill you. So it was basically go home and die. So Nora said, well, how long have I got? This was December. She said, because I want to see the daffodils one more time. Yes, you should. April, May, Mrs. Wiltshire. She saw the daffodils that year and she saw the daffodils the following year as well.
But Pauline went like that in 3
And
months.
she was never in any pain.
Pauline went 3 months, no pain, just went, it's done.
I arrived here with a tin full of paracetamols, which she didn't take because she was never in pain.
Pauline never
And I asked the doctor, are these any good? He said, you better read the date on those. Well, he said, because they do denigrate. You know, they do. You can't keep, even though they're in plastic, So I get my hand, and he said, "Don't throw them in the bin."
Yeah, they're very
Hand them
keen
in
on that, aren't they?
to the.
So anyway, that was where we met, sort of thing, and as I said, because I couldn't come down here until this, Terry applied to come
Yeah.
here. Terry arrived here, and we joined up again. So 1967,
And I met his
68.
daughter Jackie. He came down with
Yeah,
you, didn't you?
yeah.
And the last time I saw Jackie, she was that big.
Little girl.
13-year-old, yeah, I know, yeah.
So, thinking of all the things you've said, Peter, what is your most memorable, what do you remember most of all your service?
You mean as regards military
And
set?
the military service, yeah, what stands out?
Oh, I think Hong Kong the first time, those
Yeah.
months, yeah. That was, well, never having been, not even to Germany, and even only on holiday, I'd gone camping in France or something, when the family was young. But yeah, arriving there and see, because everything was so different. And that, and particularly for me, because my family, the first time they followed some months later, was going out on a troop ship, which not many people in the army, well, even in my service had done.
There's few people who
Very
there's
few
there's
people.
none in the army now. that
No,
have
it
done
wouldn't be. No, and meeting very few people while I was still before I came here who'd ever been on a troop ship, and that was an experience because you're talking a troop ship which is 12,000 tons. It's as big as one of the normal civil liners, and when I left Woolwich to go, I was sent for by a sergeant major who said, "When you get there, you'll be a troop deck sergeant," and my heart sunk. I did all these horror stories of during the war, somebody looking after 600 soldiers or 200 feet down there. And what I finished up with was 32 boys coming together as boys with their own two sergeants, and their troop deck was actually on the open deck on top. And I had nothing to do. I went along the first, said, "Hello lads, I'm going to be..." And
you enjoyed this, did you?
It was great because I didn't even have to make out the jobs, because usually you've got to clean up around yourself, keep your bunks clean, your room effectively. It was all done, didn't have to do a thing. They were all ex-boy sergeant majors and they'd got their own two conducting senior odds. So I sat back and enjoyed it. Just, went through the canal, came up one morning, felt it was hot, and sunbathed for the next few weeks.
Tell you what stands out.
Different coming back with the family.
Yeah. Have you got a memory that stands out? Some incident? Or?
Yeah. I mean, we always created on about the parachute regiment, didn't we? About the parachute regiment.
Yeah.
And when I went out the army, I was going to go as an office manager for William Hill, betting shop. And I'd come out, I was still writing for, during the release leave, sending the old cold letters out for jobs and things like that. And I got my CV into the printers. And my own quartermaster phoned me up and said, parachute regiment up in Leeds. I lived in Sheffield at that time. Was an RQMS. So I thought, go and see about it. So on the Thursday I went up for an interview, spoke to them, and they said, "When can you start?" I said, "Well, now." So they said, "Well, we've got some more to interview, but fine." So on the Friday I came back from the printers with all these 200 CVs all ready to put into letters and send out. The phone was ringing, so I answered it. I said, "Yes." And he said, "RQMS?" So I said, "Yes, sir." He said, 8:30 Monday morning, don't be late. Put the phone down. So
That's the way to do it.
So I thought, well, I've got a job. And that was it. I was then in work for the next 20 years with the parachute regiment. So, and that was close to the best part. Knowing how this gentleman here absolutely hated the parachute regiment. About 3 months after I got there, we had a regimental reunion down in Aldershot.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw the guy who was running it. I said, "Right, where's Wiltshire?" He said, "Why?" I said, because we're all doubling up in bunks and
Yeah.
whatever like that. So they asked, they put mine in with Terry's.
I couldn't believe it.
And we were walking upstairs along the corridor and heard this. What's all this rubbish here? Who the hell threw? My Benny came out, my Paraswap came out, I'm not there. So, and I was stood there with my berry on, like that, with my Paraswap on.
Don't forget your parachute mess kit you was wearing.
And he
as well.
said, what have you got there? I said, that's right. What do you mean you're in a parachute regiment? Of course, on that night, at the dinner, I mean, everyone was there and I was in my parachute regiment mess kit, like that. And I stood with these two guys who were mad, McQueenie and McGill and them, mad parachute. And this woman came up, she said, why is your mess kit different colour? So I said, parachute regiment. Oh, she said, you're a proper parachutist, are you?
Yeah.
I mean, they nearly died on throttling themselves on drinking, you know. And no, when I joined, you know,
He's even got a certificate from the American Airborne. He never even went near an aeroplane.
I fell off the steps the first time.
That's a good one. Nearest to go.
And the other side of the parachute ranger said, that's it, he goes land. All the time he goes by land.
Yeah.
Terry, what was your memory, most outstanding memory of your service?
I think Aiden, because as I said earlier, it was proper soldiering. Some people remember Northern Ireland with fondness. I don't.
No.
Dreadful place. But no, Aiden was one, and Kenya as well. The thing about Kenya, every weekend, if you weren't on duty, you could take a Land Rover and go. And we all had shotguns, and we'd ring up, we'd look at the map, and the farmers' names were on the map with their boundary and the name and the phone number. So it was to ring them up and say, can we come and shoot some duck on your lake at the weekend? And without fail, all of them said certainly. Because they liked to see the army in the air, and drove up, camped. We had tin rations, a case of beer, and then we'd shoot duck and take them back to camp. It was wonderful, wonderful.
So did you find socially you had plenty to do?
Oh,
in
yes.
the army, within, especially all of us are what one calls senior ranks, and I suppose it's your sergeant's mess is, I don't know what the right word, it's the unifying bit of all the senior ranks in that unit, and you can have brilliant sergeant's messes, you remember the places you remember so well and the people in them. Others are not so good out there, but generally speaking, sergeant's mess is a place to be anywhere.
So what makes a good mess?
The people that are in it.
There,
Yeah.
And generally speaking, I mean, certainly all the messes I've been in, there's never one I didn't enjoy being with.
Always remember at one stage.
Been in some funny ones.
When we were in Catterick, because they were running short of subalterns, they wanted warrant officers to be commissioned. Remember that? They wanted warrant officers to be commissioned.
There was
And
period,
the CO
couple of years,
said,
weren't there?
the CO said that you should only be taking the best warrant officers from the sergeant's mess, to become subalterns. And if you start taking them, that means the sergeant's mess will degrade like that.
Regiment.
And if your sergeant's mess goes, then that was it, because that is where a good regiment was a good regiment had a good sergeant's mess.
So it's very important.
It was very important to have a good sergeant's mess.
In a way, and it is true, the sergeant's mess runs the regiment.
Basically.
The colonel's in charge of it, and the battery commanders with their batteries, they administer it in a certain way, but it's the sergeants and warrant officers who run the place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really the centre of the regiment, isn't it?
Well,
it was,
because if you look at those 30 to 40 that there are, generally speaking, in the sergeant's mess, that's where the experience is. Because most officers, they're pursuing a career as well, and they'll do 1 year possibly as a second lieutenant, probably another year, 2 years, and by 4th or 5th year they're thinking of their promotion, captain.
We were fortunate in 4th that our science mess was practically the same from 61. 61 right through to when I left in 83. They'd gone through from gunners, lance bombardiers through to sergeants, sergeant majors. And
say that
so
continuity.
we all knew each other from being gunners, whatever, right through to.
Yeah. Amazing. Terry, can you remember any pranks that were ever played? Any tricks or pranks that were played on you?
On you.
Oh yes, we dined an RSM out, Wilson, do you remember? And we fixed the Land Rover up with drag ropes on the front of the Land Rover. Who was driving it? Jock Wells, wasn't it?
No.
Was you, was it?
One near Brown.
And
Brown.
So we dragged him round the camp. He had a chair sat on top of the Land Rover, and put his foot on the brake.
It was a new Land Rover. It was a new type Land Rover, which had the handbrake coming up here with the gear lever as well. You see, like that. And it was Mitchell.
That's it.
Mitchell was the driver, and I was in the front. I thought, I'm going to start pulling this bloke up there, and we took him down the officers' mess, didn't we?
Yeah.
And have a drink at the officers' mess, and we start pulling him back up, and it was slight incline, not really. And we got on a good lick, weren't you?
Yeah, a good trot.
And he was still there like that. And I said to Jim Mitchell, I said, put it in gear, get the engine going, put it in gear, let's help him up there like that. So I said, right, I said, I'll put it in gear for you. You ready? Right. And I pulled the handbrake like hanging, stopped.
And he flew off the chair.
And all I could see,
Just
all
the
I could
RSM
see
went.
was his body. God knows what these people like, all the one Thomas at the front like that.
He wasn't pleased, was
I
he?
went to the mess, and I thought, Malcolm Langford, the RSM had all the warrant officers there. Malcolm Langford was there, and Malcolm was my Barry Sergeant Major at the time. And I said, I want to see the RSM. Oh, he said, no, don't go anywhere in there. I said, no, I apologise for that. Oh, God, don't tell him that.
He wants blood.
He does, he wants blood, he wants something. So he said, and afterwards he came out and he said, Stumpy, that was my nickname. He said, here, my hand. He says, you're one of the very few people I can trust in this mess. Find me who did that Land Rover.
And it was him.
And I thought, oh, right.
Oh dear.
Of course, and then I remembered poor old Sam Brown was sat in the back drunk.
Oh yes.
Sam Brown was sat in the back.
You got to blame him.
So Monday morning I went down to survey something like that. I think you were being surveyed too then.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
And I said to Sam, Sam, you've got to go see the RSM. Oh, I said, what did I do? I said, Friday night. Oh, I said, I can't remember anything about it. Oh. No, I said, I'll tell you. So we went in there, and I will say that Sam got 7 extras, which I did.
Extra duties.
Extra duties, which I did for him, like that, like that. But it was so, as I say, it was hilarious, like that.
Can you remember anything, Peter? Any
No, not really. I mean, 1 or 2 pranks that went wrong, which I usually got the blame for, but nothing that meant going up in front of the colonel or anything.
How long did we go to Italy for? Was it a fortnight?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
The reason we went to Italy, the other 2 batteries went to Canada. And the battery commander said to the battery captain, I want you to go down to the British Embassy and find us somewhere to go for the summer. Because we weren't going to Canada. And he came back, he said, I think I've got the thing. A fortnight in Italy, being hosted...
3 weeks, remember, because we had 2 weeks.
3 weeks.
Separate, yeah.
Being hosted by the Alpini. That's the Italian, they wear the feathers in their hats and that. And we had a marvellous time. The only military activity we did was fired the rifles on the rifle range. We had a marvellous time. And it was absolutely super. And we went down to the beach. They had their own army beach.
Diano Marina.
That's it, Diano Marina. And the lads only sank a pedalo they decided to refight the Battle of Trafalgar with pedlos, and they sunk a pedal. Oh dear.
The Italians, yeah.
And it was
The best
It
about
was
it
fun.
is when we arrived there, we cleared all customs and got the guns off, and we got
Yeah.
the Land Rovers off, and he said, right, we're now going to take you through Turin, wasn't it? Was it rush hour? And he said, you will stop in your Land Rovers, you will not stop, you will keep up with the one in front. We now go, I remember, you must have been up the front as
on the wrong side of the road.
Wrong side of the road, you must have been up the front as a back start base,
Yeah.
like that. And we're off. And we're about 60
Italian
miles,
police
60
with
miles an hour.
sirens going on their motorbikes,
And
we were a dual carriageway on the wrong side of the road, and we're hurtling
Bombing
along
down there.
60, 70 mile an hour, and any driver that was slowing, getting out of the way, the motorcycle cop, big long white baton, bashed the top of the
and
car.
the other guy was sat backwards, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The pillion rider was sat
Sat backwards.
And he was battering the car.
Oh dear.
Yeah, we had a good time in Italy.
Lovely old place to go on holiday to.
And we mislaid the president's daughter, didn't we?
Yes.
The president of the province, we gave a cocktail party. We were in an old Italian barracks in the Maritime Alps. The French border was about 300 yards up the road. We were right up in the mountains. So we gave a cocktail party for the president of the province. And he brought his daughter. She was about 17 and drop dead gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Yes.
Halfway through the cocktail party, the battery commander came up to me and he said, "Where is the president's daughter?" I said, "I really have no idea." He said, "More to the point, where is Sergeant Hilton?"
Right.
I said, "I've no idea." So I went out,
He was commonly known as Mad Dan.
Mad Dan. So I went out, looking round, and all of a sudden, I could hear music. And we had a little hut they were using as a guard room, and they had a radio going in there, and there was this girl sat on the steps with a circle of admirers staring at her like this. And Mad Dan was just pouring a mug of guard room tea. And I said, "You better get back inside and take that young lady with you." Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear.
Peter, what do you think was the best thing about army life?
The chaps you worked with.
This.
Yeah.
Comradeship?
Yeah, that's the word. I don't like using that word, but yeah, it's near.
What's wrong with it? It's a good
No,
word.
it's a
It
good
is,
word,
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
But that is
it's a good
I
word.
think, the main thing. And that was from day one. Going into something entirely strange with 18, 19 complete strangers. Some you couldn't understand, broad Scot, and actually a Scotsman who couldn't speak English. And he'd never spoken English in his life. He'd be 18 saying it. But way, way, way from one of these islands, hundreds of miles out, off Scotland. And it was great. Coming from a fairly close-knit group of people to be in a barrack room there with 17, 18 other ones from all places. Never heard of.
When you join the army, you've never met a Welshman, a Geordie, a Cockney probably, somebody from the West Country, Irish. You've never met these people before in your life.
It broadened your outlook completely, didn't
Yeah, of course it does.
I mean, I'd never even been out of Sheffield. Sorry, I tell a lie, except to maybe go to Cleethorpes for a weekend,
That's
for
all
the
right.
holidays, like that. Because I said, I mean, so poor, it's, like that. And when I went there, it was great. I really enjoyed it.
So you feel obviously that joining the army is a good thing for a
Opening your eyes.
Now let me think. I wouldn't express it really. I mean, I've got two grandsons like that, and I'd be very careful about recommending them to join the army, navy, or air force like that, because of the state of play at the moment. We never even thought about it, Borneo and things like that. Never even thought about it.
My nephew's got 3 girls, and the middle one, Katie, she said to me, "I want to join the army." And I said, "Okay." I said, but don't ask me anything about the army, because I left the army 30 years ago.
Yes.
And I said, are you serious? She said, yes. He said, but Mum won't let me. I said, Katie, when you're 18, they're divorced, by the way. I said, when you're 18, you don't need your mother's permission. You can just join the army. I said, but your father tells me you're a good scholar. She's at a good girls' school. She said, yes. I said, well, do it properly. Apply for the Sandhurst entrance examination and do it properly. Anyway, she's gone off the army now. She's now in the ATC. She wants to be a pilot.
Pilot, yeah.
Well, my granddaughter is called Katie. She's 16. And she wanted to be a lawyer. She wanted to be a lawyer, like that. She now changed her mind. She wants to go to school. When she was thinking about being a lawyer, she wanted to come down to London for university down here. And somebody said to her, why do you want to go down to London? She says, Grandad's down there. He said, what really? He said, with his card. Card, you know, like that, you know.
She's
You're very
switched
proud
on.
of you.
You know,
She's switched
It's a
on.
different world then, wasn't there, with the army?
oh, yeah.
Oh, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
so.
yeah.
I think so.
Plus, the fact it was a good job, very good job, very interesting and like that. I suppose it must be now, still. You know, it still will be, but you know.
It was in Kenya, and my 12 years was coming up, and I was like that. And I wrote to my father, and he said, I think you're better off where you are. And one day I was walking around the camp doing something, and the chief clerk come up to me, and he had a millboard in his hand. And he said, sign that. I said, what is it? He said, you're signing on now, go on, signing. And I said, all right, so I signed it, and I signed on for the whole whack, the 22, do the whole whack. I was iffing and butting about it.
I got signed up for the 22 right from the start.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah. There was never any halfway stage or anything like that.
Do you
I
remember
did
your
actually.
last day? Do you remember the last day in the army?
I can't. No, you'd have to give me a minute to think.
Yeah, I do.
I think even where I
Your
was.
last day in the army?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, I do,
I was 101 in Newcastle, and
Yes.
I went and I got my paperwork and things like that, and there was nobody around. That's one thing I found. There was nobody around to say goodbye
Yeah.
to or anything like
No,
that.
you mentioned.
And I remember the day after I phoned up, and it was 101 Regiment, TA. And I phoned up, the Chief Clerk answered the phone. So I said, "Oh, Chief," I said, "Ray Adams." "Who?" I said, "Ray Adams." "Sorry, I'm not with you." I said, "Yesterday I was RQMS." "Oh, that guy." I
Yeah.
thought,
Yeah.
You
Your
reminded me,
history.
you-
that was it.
Your
Gone.
history.
Yeah.
I was the same. I went up to RHQ, and the first thing they want off you is your ID card. Hand him my ID card. Sign there. I said, not again. The Official Secrets Act.
Yeah.
Not I've got one in my folder there. Not again.
Yeah.
And then the adjutant said, one moment, Mr. Wiltshire. And he went into the Colonel's office, and he said, Colonel, I've got Mr. Wiltshire out here. Would you like to say goodbye, Mr. Wiltshire? Why would I want to say goodbye to him? And as he said that, I turned round and walked out the office.
I'm very surprised.
Yeah, you're a non-entity.
But having said that, in the April, you taken over by then, hadn't you?
Yeah.
The quartermaster called me and he said, what are you doing now? I said, not a lot. He said, go home.
Yeah.
My demob date was the end of October. He said, go home. I've got your phone number. Any disasters, we'll call you. So I just went home. Not on leave, I just went home.
Yeah.
And they got a new colonel come and he didn't know who I was.
Very
So
strange.
he had an excuse there when he said, why do I want to say goodbye to him? He didn't know me.
No.
Do you recall, Peter?
Yes, and now it's good since a couple of things Terry said has reminded me. Because I had, like many of us, I finished up going to the TA, is what they called it.
Did you get dined out?
From my old regiment, I
Yeah.
did, when I left 5th
Yeah.
Regiment, a regular regiment, but then I went off to do 6 months as a permanent staff instructor to the Essex Young, to the, unit in Chesterfield. And I met the adjutant, I met the RSM, and I met the colonel on one occasion. I never saw for 6 months. Basically, all I did, they wanted a guy. They used to send people about 12 or 14 over for 2 weeks or so, acting as OPs with regular regiments in Germany. They didn't ever send them as a regiment. They went in small parties. You know, every year a number of them go spend a fortnight with regular regiments in Germany and act as their OP parties and things like that. So basically, I found myself doing something to pass the time. I started doing all the paperwork, booking the flights, booking the coach to drop them, meet them, all that sort of thing. And but I didn't see anyone basically. And I finished up only going in on Tuesday mornings for the last 5 or 6 months just to do this paperwork. Otherwise, I could have sat at home because the colonel was civilian. The only regular person there was the adjutant and the RSM. And they really didn't know what to do with you. So they were quite happy to hand this little job over to me for a few months. And when I left, I don't think anybody noticed. Because I wasn't really working with anyone.
My cousin was in the Navy for about the same time that I was. And for 20 odd years, he was on submarines. And I was telling him, I said, I was dined out on my final weekend. He said, He said, in the Navy, chance would be a fine thing. I said, do you get... No. He said, I was posted from the submarine because they were going out on patrol, so he couldn't go. And they sent him to Portsmouth. He said, I kicked my heels for a fortnight round the barracks. He said, on my final day, I literally packed my grip and walked out the gate. No one said goodbye to him or anything.
So
Would you move away from a unit?
I think quite a few people have that memory. You know, it's happened to a lot of people.
That's right.
Have just
Yeah.
left.
When you leave your regular regiment, 6 or perhaps a year beforehand, but like I did when work, and there was no one there during the day, only someone once a week or something like that. So, yeah.
Well, see, I mean, I dare say in a regular regiment.
Oh,
I mean,
if you
I mean,
leave direct from there,
in going out from the regiment.
and you dined out
But the
there.
thing about it, I took over from you, carried on, and that was it.
And there was the perennial argument in the sergeant's mess, how much to spend on the going away present. You remember?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Every year that came up.
Yeah.
Did you get a going away present?
Oh yes,
What did you get?
I got a barometer because I'd asked for a barometer.
Yeah.
There was a £10, was it 10 or 100? No, 10.
10.
And it was yes, it was £10. Going back 30 years, so a lot of money.
To buy
And
bread.
we had a big argument. One gentleman was leaving, and they proposed, because he was getting commissioned, and they proposed buying him a sword. So someone said, you know, point of order, what happened to you can't buy a sword for £10.
No.
Oh yeah, but he's getting commissioned, and the argument went back
Yeah,
and forth.
yeah, that's
So eventually the RSM had to have a show of hands, and he got his sword. I was so against
I
that.
was against it as
I
well.
was against
And
it.
so it was common everywhere. We had the same.
Most of the warrant officers were against it.
Yes,
Yeah.
a sword is about 200 or 300. Well, it was then £200 or £300.
Yeah.
What did you get, Ray?
I think I got a clock.
You got
Clock.
The other thing,
clock's the
I remember that they asked him what he wanted,
Gave it
and
away.
the RSM was away at the time, and I was doing RSM. I told about my card, and the mess steward came up to me dinner that night, dining out, the Tech RQ, and he said, I said, what we got from him? He said he wanted 4 tyres for his car, like that.
Yeah.
So
Fair
I said,
enough.
So I said,
Yeah.
no problems.
Ready to
Why
draw
not?
the line.
Hold on, let me finish, Peter. No, bother point. I said, no problems. So I got to make a farewell speech, knowing my card back from boys' service when we were together like that. And I said, you asked for some tyres. And there you go.
Oh, there was little dinky toy cars.
No. He had 4 tyres. He was sat there like you are now on the left-hand side.
Jill.
Put the tyre on the table there like that. And carried on with quite a lengthy speech. I said, there's the second one. In the end, he was sat there with 4 tyres in front of him.
He couldn't
like
see
that.
it. Oh dear.
How do you get them home?
Wasn't the slightest bit interested.
No, yes.
I
No,
agree
I'm quite
And I
agree.
said, and the steward, I said, what we should have done in actual fact was attach a little label like they put on my car, like they put on my clock, presented by the Sergeant Smiths. You know, we should have put that on his tyres so they went flat.
Mine are with my 3 daughters scattered about the world. Because I left, like we often do, you go from one regiment to another. And I've got 3, so one's with each of my 3 daughters. Simon's always upset.
When I got dined out, we had a dinner. Went to the bar afterwards, and I'm stood at the bar. And who was it came up to me? John Keating, was that his name? Keating?
He was
Brian Keating, a quarterback. Anyway,
the chief.
Yeah, he came up to me at the bar and he said, "Terry," and I said, "Yes, John." He said, "What are you doing with your waistcoat?" So I took my mesh jacket off, undone the waistcoat, took it off, and I said, "Here, have it." Put my jacket back on again. And then in the morning I gave my mess kit to you, didn't I?
Yeah. All messed
No
up.
good to me anymore.
No,
Yeah,
I took it down there in the stores. Anybody that came in, if it fitted,
they could have it.
they
Yeah.
could
have it.
yeah.
What was your gift, Peter? What was your gift?
I had a clock,
You
which
had
I
a clock.
particularly wanted, and it's still knocking around. I think Lindsay's got it, my eldest daughter now. I didn't bring anything here other than bits and pieces that we do. I didn't want to have anything here, you know, like that.
So finally, are you in veterans associations? Do you keep in touch with regiments?
Let me think now.
I can
It-
tell
it's
you
a
no,
moot point.
because all the people I knew are dead. You know, as they died off, more or
It's a
less.
moot point. I mean,
40
like
years.
I've been asked to go to the Boys Association, ex-Boys Association dinner in Coventry.
Is that the one in the Gunner? In the Gunner magazine?
Yeah, the ex-Boys, yeah. Ted Mackenzie I knew because he was in Gunstroke with me. Dave DeFowl was the secretary, and I knew him from football, and that's basically it. I mean,
Okay. There's another question actually. Do you think being in the army sets a man apart with all the training that you get? There's a difference between those who've been in the army and those young men who haven't.
you could. I mean, when I was up in Leeds, I was honorary secretary of the Golf Club up there, and a guy came, a guy called Barry Wells, engineer, Lieutenant Colonel, and he arrived and had been there about a fortnight. He called me over and he said, "You were in the army, weren't you?" So I said, "Yeah." I said, "I still am. I'm with the TA." So no, he said, "I could tell with all these people around there like that." And he ended up as my golf partner, you know. And,
So it does set you
yeah,
apart.
he
yeah.
push you apart. You know, you can pick them out.
I think you can. I think you can tell.
You can have a long rundown from when you leave your last Redley unit, and you can still have an association with the army. Certainly as I did for another, up until coming down here, another 30 plus years, because my wife, having left the army, my wife applied for a job. I didn't even know at the time. It was just a job, and it turned out to be working for the Royal Corps of Transport or something else before they were that, as a messenger, the mail person. So I had this other sort of another 30 odd years because I'd gone up one day to see her 6 months after she started, and I met the RSM who invited me to be a honorary member of that unit, which I did. And I was still going up there until I moved down here after my wife.
But having said that, Peter, when I was working at CAD Kyneton, which is a big ammunition depot in Warwickshire, my boss in Shrewsbury rang me up one day and he said, "Terry," he said, "are you a honorary member of the Sergeant's Mess there?" And I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "Well, I don't like this. I'm going to fix it." And I said, "No, please, don't on my account. No, I'm not interested." And he said, "Why ever not?" I said, "I left the army a long time ago, and they're all Royal Logistics Corps." I said, "I'd have absolutely nothing in common with any of them." And the chap who I work with, Alan Pritchard, he was ex-Pay Corps, and he used to be stationed there as their paid bloke. He became an honorary member of the Sergeant's Mess. I think he went there About 3 months, then he resigned and jacked it in. He said that.
It was
Oh, I
same as
enjoyed
me
it.
with the parachute regiment when I left. I did 20 years with them, and when I left, they said, "Oh, Cope, you know, I think I went to once, you know," and I was never ever really accepted as
Of course, you didn't jump out of aeroplanes.
that was it. No, I didn't jump.
No, I did it just the opposite. I enjoyed those many years later, you know. It was helped by the fact that my wife worked for the unit, so it was slightly different. But enjoyed being a member of the Silent Mess again. That's what it was, for me, it was all about.
No, I could use that. I could use it. Go in and use the mess. There was no problem on that if I wanted to. They used to come up and have dinners at the Golf Club because I always used to give them a good deal. And
I bet you did.
Oh, yeah.
No, I did, and I enjoyed every moment of it.
Well, before we finish, can we just look at the medals, because they're absolutely fabulous. Terry, what are your medals?
Biggin?
Your medals, what are they, Terry?
That's the General Service Medal, 1962, and you get a clasp for each campaign. And I think that there's Radfan, which was Aden, South Arabia, which is Aden again, Borneo, and Northern Ireland.
yeah,
And that one is awarded by the Malayan government. It's called the Pinjat
Pinjat, yeah.
Jasa. Now, when they awarded it, the Queen wouldn't allow it, or someone in the Queen's office wouldn't allow it to be worn because it hasn't got her head on it. The Queen's head is on every medal except that one.
Once again.
But then someone pointed out to the Queen that all the people who are entitled to that, they're not in the army anymore. Because it finished in when, 1966, 67, whenever it was. That was a long time ago. So the Queen gave permission for us to wear it.
I didn't know that.
The Australians and the New Zealanders, they all wore it straight away. But the Queen gave her permission. And in fact, on Founders' Day last year, I was stood there very martial, waiting, and the Duke of York came by and he said, "I don't recognise that, what is that?" I was just about to open my mouth when the adjutant told him.
Yeah.
I went, "Oh, I'll be quiet then."
Yeah,
Yeah.
keep quiet. Yeah.
Keep quiet.
Yeah.
Oh, what are yours, Ray?
Well, I've basically got the same. Remember there, which is the Northern Ireland, Borneo, Malaya.
And hang on,
Right, start.
Malayan Peninsula,
Yeah, that's what Malaya.
Borneo,
Borneo,
what's that one? Oman, is it?
Dhofar.
Dhofar. Yeah.
Dhofar. When I was in the Oman, Northern Ireland, and once again, that one there is the Jubilee medal.
Silver
Yeah.
Jubilee. Was it
Silver
Golden Jubilee?
Yeah.
So,
That was very hard to come by. That
I don't. We don't
only,
want to talk about
only,
that one.
only a few of us are very.
We don't
good
want to
at
talk about that one. You've got.
When we were serving, we used to go on parade like that, and we were always asked to leave because it was the presentation of long-service good conduct medals. And the RSM knew that you get caustic remarks from Adam.
I haven't got one. I didn't get one.
I came out of the army and a knock on the door one day, and the postman stood there, and he said, "Will you sign for that?" I said, "What is it?" He said, "I don't know." Medal of it. And I got it off the postman. You know, and that was it.
So that's the third.
So you were out of the army when you got
Oh
that?
yeah. That's the third one.
That's good
That was
conduct.
This one here was in the TA, you know, it's the TA efficiency medal. I used to call it the deficiency medal.
yeah.
That there was 10 years. The Bar Cross
Fair
was another 5 years. That was 15 years. And the Pinjat. Now the difference between that, the guy who was the secretary of the Borneo Association was, oh crap, I forget his name now, he was in the regiment. Fred Burden. Fred Burden. He phoned me up and he said, "Are you applying for it?" So I said, "Yes, I'll put your name down anyway." And we got a letter, and the armory's in Leeds. I don't know if you've
Yes.
ever been there. Have you been in the armory's in Leeds? As you go in there, on the right-hand side, there's a massive hall, like that. And we had to go down there for the presentation by the ambassador, the Malay ambassador. And we went in there, there was myself and Pauline, my 2 daughters, their husbands and the grandchildren, all there. And good grief, literally nearly 1,000 people there. You know, there was 400 people waiting to be presented with this medal. I thought, oh, people are going to be here for some time like that. And he said, we'd like to start, Warrant Officer Adams. I thought, that's me, yeah, got it like that, and got the medal, got the photographs taken and things like that. And that was it. As I say, Terry was, you weren't with.
I didn't know anything about it.
No.
I didn't know anything about it until the chap at home who was in the RAF, he got it.
And he said,
And I said, what? He said, well, I'd like to apply for it. I said, well, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
There was nothing in there. I didn't take the Gunner magazine, so I didn't know. So when I got here, Paddy Teagan said, buy your own,
yeah,
which is what I did. With the engraving, it cost me 50-some pounds. And then, what's his name? Chips Rafferty went to a dinner. It was the Malaya Borneo Association, and he brought a wonderful book back full of photographs of the campaign, which was from, oh golly, the Malayan emergency right the way through and Borneo. And at the back was listed all the units that took part. And I took my finger down and it said, Radar Troop, 3rd Regiment Royal Horse Artillery, which was me.
Yeah.
So I thought, therefore, I am justified, and I bought it. I awarded it to myself.
there's not a name on the bottom, is there?
I'll have to.
No, it's clean.
It's clean.
Mine, I have mine engraved.
All the other medals, have all got your number, rank and name on at the time. You know,
I had that done.
that
The
there,
engraving.
yeah, well, the monochrome. There, that's when I was Bombardier. That's got that. And I say, all the ones, with your number, rank and name on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about yours, Peter? What have you got?
Oh, I don't know. That's the
You got-
long
you
service.
got- you
That's
got
the long
you
service.
got the GSM,
Well,
start again.
General service.
GSM, which was for
General service.
Northern Ireland, isn't it?
Yeah.
Northern Ireland,
Yeah.
yeah. Then that one.
But you don't get like Terry's got for each occasion. Not the
No, we didn't get on for each occasion.
No.
We just got Northern Ireland.
What's that white one?
This
That's
one.
the Jubilee. That's the Queen's one.
Oh, the Silver Jubilee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
What's
the
that one?
Meritorious Service.
Meritorious
Service
medal.
medal, yeah.
And that's the long service and good conduct.
This is what I find sickening.
And-
I haven't got a long service,
No,
and,
no.
and he's got 2.
Because that is like another medal, basically. That, like, we all have got something, which is the same thing again.
Do we have to talk about long service? Good
No, we didn't.
No, we'll finish
Let's
that.
carry on. Let's go.
Yeah.